right, so today we're taking a deep dive into English humor. Jokes, sarcasm, puns, you name it.
The whole comedic toolbox.
Exactly. And, we often think of humor as just, for entertainment, but it's really a powerful way to get a deeper understanding of English language and culture.
It's true. Humor is like a secret passageway into the heart of a language. And it's fascinating because, we focus so much on grammar and vocabulary when really humor can really speed up your learning.
Okay, now that's something I want to hear more about. I've definitely felt lost when someone makes a joke in English, so is there something about humor that helps us learn faster?
Absolutely. Studies show that, engaging with humor jokes and puns can actually help you learn vocabulary and phrases 30% faster. When you think about it, you're more likely to remember a funny story or a clever play on words than a boring grammar rule.
Right, okay. I'm starting to see how humor can be more than just a good laugh. But let's break it down. When we talk about English humor, what are the main types? Well, you've got the classic joke, of course. The setup, the punchline, the element of surprise, and actually a really simple joke like, why don't skeletons fight each other? Shows a key part of English humor.
Okay, you've got me curious. Why don't they?
Because they don't have the guts. See? It's all about playing with words and double meanings, something you see all the time in English humor.
That's a great point. It's not just about knowing the words, it's about the subtle ways that they can be used to make something funny. You start to see how English speakers think and play with language.
Okay, so we've got jokes, but then there's sarcasm. And this one's like a whole other thing. It's almost like you have to read between the lines, right?
Exactly. Sarcasm really depends on how you say it. Imagine someone saying, "Oh, fantastic, another traffic jam," when they're clearly annoyed. It's saying the opposite of what you mean. And to get it, you need to be able to understand tone of voice.
Yeah, I can see how that could be tough for someone learning English. So is there a way to get better at picking up on sarcasm?
The key is exposure. The more you hear native speakers talking, especially in regular conversations or comedy shows, the more you'll start to notice those little hints.
So it's like training your ears to hear the irony.
Exactly. And as you get better at understanding sarcasm, you'll sound more natural and fluent yourself, which is a pretty great feeling.
Okay, moving on to puns. These always feel like a word puzzle to me, playing with words that sound alike but have different meanings. It's like mental gymnastics for your vocabulary.
You're exactly right. Puns are all about wordplay, and they're so popular in English humor. Think of it like this. I'm reading a book on anti-gravity. It's impossible to put down.
Ah, very clever. You get that double meaning of put down, both like physically putting the book down and not being able to stop reading because it's so good.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about puns. They make you think about lots of meanings at the same time, which actually helps you learn more words and understand the language better. But there's another side to humor that we should talk about: the cultural context.
Right, because a joke that works in one culture might not work in another. You can't really separate humor from the values and experiences of the people telling the jokes.
It's true. Humor reflects a shared cultural understanding. What one group finds funny, another might find weird or even offensive. Like American and British humor, for example.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a different feel to each. American humor often seems more direct and embraces self-deprecation and sarcasm. Think of classic sitcoms like Friends, Chandler being the master of self-deprecating sarcasm.
The perfect example. Chandler's ability to make fun of himself in awkward situations is like classic American humor. But then you have British humor, which is usually more subtle and dry.
Yes. British humor is all about that subtle wit, the irony, the ability to find humor in everyday things. Like someone saying, lovely weather we're having while it's pouring rain.
It's that deadpan delivery and finding humor in the unexpected that makes British humor what it is. But here's the thing. If you don't know much about British culture, those subtle cues might go right over your head.
So it's not just about understanding the words, but also the cultural context. It's like learning a whole new set of social rules. And that's probably why it can be so hard to understand humor in another language.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
But you mentioned earlier that being exposed to humor in different cultures can make you 23% better at understanding native speakers. Why do you think that is?
Well, it seems like humor makes you pay attention more closely. You're not just listening to the words. You're picking up on the tone of voice, facial expressions, even cultural references.
Exactly. It's like a workout for your listening skills.
Yeah.
It makes you more aware of the little ways native speakers talk in real life.
So humor is not just about getting the joke. It's about becoming a better listener, like a cultural detective.
I love that. It's about digging deeper and seeing humor as a way to understand a culture. But let's get practical for a second. You, our listener, are trying to understand English humor. So what are some things you can do to get better at it?
Well, first of all, immerse yourself in it. Watch comedy shows, stand-up specials, even sitcoms. Start with ones that have clear jokes and obvious laughter, like Friends or How I Met Your Mother. They're like training wheels for your humor comprehension.
And don't be afraid to pause and rewind. It's all about training your ear to pick up on comedic timing and rhythm. Pay attention to the pauses, the changes in tone, the way a comedian sets up the punchline.
Yes, it's like dissecting a joke to see how it works.
Yeah.
But you don't have to start with complicated stand-up routines. Sometimes the simplest jokes are the best for learning.
Absolutely. Those classic dad jokes or knock-knock jokes might seem silly, but they're great for practicing wordplay and getting the basic structure of humor.
Oh, I love dad jokes, like knock knock.
Who's there?
Cow says.
Cow says who?
No, silly cow says moo.
See? Simple and straightforward. But it shows how English humor often uses sounds and unexpected twists. And once you understand those basic parts, you can move on to more complex types of humor.
And speaking of basic parts, let's not forget about idioms and expressions. A lot of English humor depends on understanding phrases that don't mean what the individual words mean.
That's a really important point. If you took an idiom like break a leg, literally, you'd be really confused at a play. You need to know that it actually means good luck.
Right. It's like a secret code. But all this learning and practicing shouldn't be done alone. One of the best ways to get better is to share jokes with other people.
I completely agree. Find some English-speaking friends or language partners and just tell jokes even if they're silly. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
And it's okay if your jokes don't always work.
That's true. Sometimes the jokes that fail teach you the most. But what's interesting is that studies have shown that practicing humor this way can actually make you less anxious and improve your speaking fluency by 25% compared to just doing grammar exercises.
That makes sense. When you're relaxed and having fun with the language, you're more likely to just speak and not worry about being perfect. It takes the pressure off and lets you connect with others through laughter.
Exactly. But there's another part of this that I think is important. It's not just about understanding how humor works. It's about how it makes us feel. Why do you think that matters for language learning?
Well, when you laugh, you feel good about what you're experiencing. And in this case, it's the English language. That happiness, that feeling of connection makes learning less scary and more fun.
Right. It's like humor takes the pressure off. Instead of stressing about grammar or pronunciation, you're enjoying the language.
Yeah.
And that makes you want to keep learning and explore more.
Yeah.
Studies have shown that people who use humor while they're learning are 40% more likely to keep practicing and feel good about speaking English in real life. It's like humor helps you stay motivated and keeps you going.
So it's not just about understanding the jokes, it's about letting those good feelings you get from humor become part of your whole language learning experience. It's about enjoying the journey.
You got it. And that joy, that positive feeling can be really powerful. It helps you get through the tough parts and the times when you feel frustrated, which happens to every language learner.
So in a way, by getting English humor, you're not just learning more words or improving your listening, you're building a better and stronger relationship with the language.
Exactly. It's a whole new approach that changes how you learn and use English.
Well, there you have it. You've taken a deep dive into English humor. We went beyond simple definitions and looked at the details of jokes, sarcasm, puns, and how important cultural context is.
And maybe most importantly, we've discovered how humor can actually help you learn English faster. It can improve your vocabulary, make you a better listener, and even strengthen your connection with the language.
We've seen how humor can make learning English not just more effective, but also more fun, helping you embrace the quirks and complexities of the language with a smile. But now I want to turn it over to you, our listener.
Yes, we've given you a lot to think about. What parts of English humor do you find the hardest? And what will you try to get better?
Remember, every time you laugh at a good pun, every time you understand sarcasm, every time you tell a joke, you're getting closer to fluency.
Enjoy the journey, keep exploring, and never underestimate the power of laughter in language learning.
Happy laughing.
Well, think about it. When you laugh, you create a positive emotional connection with what you're experiencing. And in this case, it's the English language. That joy, that feeling of connection, it makes learning less scary and more enjoyable.
It's like humor takes the edge off, right? Instead of stressing about grammar rules or pronunciation, you're having fun with the language. And that makes you want to keep going, explore more.
Exactly. Studies show that learners who use humor when they're studying are 40% more likely to stick with it and feel confident using English in real-life situations. Like humor fuels your motivation, and makes you more resilient.
So it's not just about getting the jokes, it's about letting those positive emotions you get from humor become part of your whole language learning experience. It's about finding joy in the journey.
You've got it. And that joy, that positive emotional connection can be so powerful. It helps you overcome those challenges, those moments of frustration that every language learner has.
So in a way, by understanding and appreciating English humor, you're not just learning more words or being a better listener, you're building a more positive and stronger relationship with the language.
Precisely. It's a holistic approach that changes how you learn and use English.
Well, there you have it. We've done a deep dive into the world of English humor. We went beyond simple definitions and explored jokes, sarcasm, puns, and how important cultural context is.
And maybe most importantly, we discovered how humor can actually make you learn English faster. It improves your vocabulary, makes you a better listener, and even strengthens your emotional bond with the language.
We've seen how humor can make learning English not only more effective, but also more enjoyable. It helps to embrace all the weird and wonderful parts of the language with a smile. But now we want to hear from you, our listener.
Yes, we've given you a lot to consider. What parts of English humor are the most difficult for you? And what strategies will you use to improve your understanding?
Remember, every time you laugh at a pun, or figure out sarcasm, or tell a joke, you're getting closer to fluency.
Enjoy the journey, keep exploring, and never forget the power of laughter when you're learning a language.
Happy laughing!
It's about peeling back the layers and seeing humor as a way to understand a culture's soul. But let's get practical for a moment. You, our listener, are on this quest to understand English humor. What are some actual steps you can take to get better at it?
Well, first and foremost, I'd say immerse yourself. Watch comedy shows, stand-up specials, even sitcoms. Start with ones that have clear jokes and laughter cues like Friends or How I Met Your Mother. They're like training wheels for understanding humor.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to pause and rewind. It's about training your ear to the rhythm and timing of comedy. Notice the pauses, the way their tone changes, the way the comedian sets up the punchline.
It's like taking a joke apart to see how it works. But you don't have to start with a difficult stand-up. Sometimes the simplest jokes are the best for learning.
Absolutely. Those classic dad jokes or knock-knock jokes may seem silly, but they're great for practicing wordplay and understanding the basic structure of humor.
Oh, I love dad jokes like, knock, knock.
Who's there?
Cow says.
Cow says who?
No silly cow says moo.
You see? It's simple, but it shows how English humor often plays with sounds and unexpected twists. And once you understand those basic building blocks, you can move on to more complex humor.
Right. And speaking of building blocks, we can't forget idioms and expressions. So much of English humor relies on understanding those phrases that have a different meaning than their literal words.
That's so important. If you took break a leg, literally you'd be lost at a theater.
Yeah.
You need to understand it means good luck.
It's like a secret code. But learning and practicing shouldn't be a solo mission. One of the best ways to improve is to actually share jokes with others.
I couldn't agree more. Find English-speaking friends or language partners and just start telling jokes. It doesn't matter if they're silly. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
And don't worry if a joke doesn't land.
That's true. Sometimes the jokes that fail teach you the most. What's interesting is that studies have shown practicing humor this way can actually reduce anxiety and improve your fluency by 25%. It's way better than just doing grammar drills.
Makes sense. When you're relaxed and having fun with the language, you're more likely to let go and speak. It takes the pressure off and lets you connect with people through laughter.
Exactly. But there's another layer to this that's really important. It's not just about understanding how humor works. It's about the emotional impact it has on us. Why do you think that's important for language learning?
Well, I guess when you laugh, you create a positive connection with what you're doing. And in this case, it's English. That joy, that connection makes learning less intimidating and more fun.
Right. It's like humor takes the pressure off. Instead of worrying about grammar or pronunciation, you're having fun.
Right.
And that makes you want to learn more and explore more.
Yeah.
Studies have shown that people who use humor while learning are 40% more likely to keep practicing and feel confident using English in real life. It's like humor keeps you motivated and helps you bounce back from setbacks.
So it's not just about understanding the jokes. It's about making those positive feelings part of your language learning. It's about finding joy in the whole process.
Exactly. And that joy, that positive connection is powerful. It helps you get through the tough times and the frustrations that come with learning any language.
So by understanding and appreciating English humor, you're not just learning words or improving your listening, you're building a stronger and more positive connection with the language itself.
Exactly. It's a whole new approach that changes how you learn and use English.
Well, there you have it, folks. We've taken a deep dive into the world of English humor. We've gone beyond simple definitions to explore jokes, sarcasm, puns, and the role of culture in understanding it all.
And we've seen how humor can actually speed up your language learning journey, boosting your vocabulary, sharpening your listening skills, and even strengthening your emotional connection with the language.
We've explored how humor can make learning English not just more effective, but also more enjoyable, helping you embrace the quirks and complexities of the language with a smile. So keep exploring, keep laughing, and never underestimate the power of humor in your language learning adventure. This has been a deep dive into English humor. Thanks for listening.